Thank you. Thank you very much, Abby, and everyone else. So greetings from Beirut. It's past 10 p.m. So forgive me if I would sound a little bit sleepy, but I'll try my best to give it all my go. I presume I can share my screen.
Yes, you can.
Okay. All right. I'll get to slideshow. Of course, I'm very, very honored to be delivering the keynote speech on governance imperatives for generative AI. There's a lot that we share together. I think the fact that I come from a part of the world that is also struggling to kind of position itself in this highly volatile landscape, but I'm also I think I would have something to leave you for the rest of the week as a computer scientist trying to kind of bridge the lacuna that exists between a community that is in an endless race to develop newer technologies and another community that is trying to regulate and figure out the risks and where it stands. So I think the lacuna is very, very wide. The first thing I would say is it's really a problem of sculpting the right mindset to navigate all of that. Hence the title of my talk, Sculpting a Mindset and then Navigating the Risks. Of course, we live in times where everybody feels a burnout, a sort of AI burnout related to job insecurities, lack of role clarity. Everyone is impacted, including us as computer scientists or academicians. There's also an evolving kind of, I think, concern is what everybody knows, that AI supremacy, which is an emerging classifications of nations. Those who know more, who are able to develop more, they have the kind of the bulk of the talent is centralized there in the finances and everything. And that creates, in contrast, another trend that emerges with it to do with AI colonialism, which is really about the reproduction of historical trends in colonialism as we see it unraveling in the AI context. Everybody has this on mind, like how to navigate a fast-paced, highly volatile, highly competitive ecosystem. We train our students, they graduate 5 years down the road, they feel completely redundant. That's very dangerous. This is an era where decisions in boardrooms will be informed or even made by AI systems, and everybody, I think, is panicking. I consider myself to be one of the lucky ones, and not only because I've been trained originally as a mathematician, but also later on as a computer scientist in foundational subjects before the hype erupted. So I always like to kind of bring the slide on board to remind everyone these foundations remain. So from the 1950s and the Turing tests were proposed in machine intelligence, of course, a big developments happened in the 1980s and 90s. Expert systems were developed based on hard-coded rules. 2014, around that time, 2010 and onwards, brought the revolution of the deep learning paradigms, where that's where models started to become sort of closer to our own minds in terms of neurons and networks and impulses and reactions and layers of thinking. And of course, slowly towards 2020s, so that the deep learning revolution paved the way to what we know today about generative AI, which is, as the name implies, it's AI that is able to generate not knowledge, no, not at all. I would say knowledge can be generated in much more powerful ways using traditional AI, but it can generate the medium where this knowledge or part of it can be communicated with the end user. And that's where the kind of the explosive thing happened, a lot of commercialization, which worries me, to be honest, because many times I wonder, is this kind of the kind of hysterical sort of spread of these tools, how much of it was scientifically founded and how much was actually commercially founded. So what sets generative AI apart for non-tech audience? And unlike traditional AI that classifies or predicts and does a lot of decision making and insight, generative AI simply creates text or audio or video, which opened up new frontiers in innovation, decision making, and strategy. Of course, by now, by 2025, a lot of people have seen that it's been transforming businesses, but mostly on the automation in the automation sector. So, and obviously that was quite a lot for people to appreciate about generative AI, automating content creation and customer service, reviewing contracts, generating personalized marketing, and all of that. And of course, people started to worry about how much of our jobs are at risk. A lot of reports, I think the latest of which I've read was the 2025 World Economic Forum report. Clerical roles, cashiers, admin assistants are pretty much dying. But of course, a lot of other jobs are becoming in demand. AI and ML specialists, data analysts continue to be on the rise. Now, what worries me beyond generative AI is probably something I needed to talk about today, much that I'm not personally very sort of convinced this is something we need to be discussing too much in the span of next week. But people here in Lebanon, as I kind of give public talks here and there, ask me, what do you think is the scariest thing that would be coming up in the next 5 years? I would say agentic AI. Agentic AI, which really represents a major shift in AI and human collaboration, and moves from rule-based and passive tools, including single-agent large language models, to autonomous systems that can pursue user-defined goals without needing prompts. Now, why now? Well, multi-agent systems have always existed, but now the kind of the marriage between this and the advances in large language models have sort of improved the memory architecture and hierarchy and the medium by which these agents can even talk to each other and track context. Reinforcement learning enables self-improvement, and as a result has been generalized to improvement of AI agents' communication around each other, evaluating each other, debating across each other, and sort of leading to a notion of collective intelligence where the large language models try to mimic how humans become more intelligent, not only on their own, but by interacting with other human beings. Core capabilities around agentic AI nowadays is that it's those built on machine learning and NLP and automation, but can execute extremely complex workflows while requiring minimal human input. They are becoming more specialized. They handle specific tasks at very, very large scale. They are improving at the level of trust. They are better than generative AI at filtering and aligning with corporate values. They are more reliable because they are more cautious with information than generative AI, because some of them are just specialized to kind of rate the reliability of the entire system. And equally likely, the robustness, they are less prone to errors because they use their shared memory to kind of check each other's sort of output, address hallucination and other risks that I'm going to talk about. Now, plenty of agentic AI case studies from HR to engineering to sales and facilities. Really, I mean, a quick search would show you the extent to which agentic AI solutions are really kind of being deployed nowadays. And as a result, as we speak of governance, so where do we start? So at the level of Gen AI, this is something that maybe is not terribly new, but we kind of have to review it and then move on to like what happens now with agentic AI. Now, because generative AI involves AI models that are creating content and even making business suggestions, the first sort of challenge we always kind of point about is the transparency challenge. AI generated outputs can be opaque, as in black box. I'll review very, very vaguely now, but then I'll kind of go a little bit deeper as I progress in the presentation. Risk governance around bias, misuse, hallucinations, and IP infringement. Data ethics, who owns the data used in the models? Is it being used responsibly? Who's responsible if AI makes a harmful decision or recommendation? How do we audit and explain AI-driven outcomes? And how do we address the skills gap? AI literacy for board members to govern effectively is a big thing. Where do we start? Like Gen AI came kind of several years after traditional AI has been in the market, and board members seem to be lagging behind. Now, agentic AI adds another complex layer. Because these act autonomously, they can plan, decide, and take actions without constant human input. Governance now needs to handle that precise autonomy and control boundaries. How much freedom should AI agents have? Real-time oversight mechanisms become imperative. Traditional periodic reviews that everybody knows are not fast enough. These agents are super fast, and the interaction is really very powerful. Of course, we also need to worry about the delegation of authority, which becomes a legal and ethical issue. Can the AI agentic system, represent a company in negotiations? Well, they are collectively intelligent. They debate and collaborate and sort of do this kind of ping pong of ideas. Can AI represent a company in all of these hiring or contracts? And there's a dynamic risk landscape that is evolving. Because agentic AI may interact with other AIs and adapt over time and influence external environments, that risk now becomes dynamic as opposed to static. AI agents as quasi-employees raises big questions about liability, insurance, and audit trails. My favorite things that I always like to kind of clear the confusion around, especially when addressing an audience that is really not a very technical, doesn't come from a technical background, still outside the radar of governance, whether it's Gen AI, traditional, or agentic, is a kind of confusion around several issues that I would like to delineate. So the first thing I would urge everybody to start thinking about at the very, very basic level, to make a distinction between AI maturity, AI value creation, and AI value capture. And as a consultant, I would actually kind of walk through this trajectory. AI maturity refers to simply about, well, how advanced is an organization's AI capabilities are? What's its readiness across strategy, data, talent, technology, and governance? How well are they? How is it going at the level of development and integration of AI systems? And is the corporation able to scale AI across the echelon? Well, that aside, does not necessarily make you a sort of an entity that is doing AI value creation, and that is generating new value through the development and application of AI, maintaining some kind of productivity and efficiency and better decision making. A bit higher goes AI value capture. So whatever value you've developed, whatever maturity you've acquired, AI value capture sort of at the higher level, which refers to the extraction of the economic or strategic benefit from AI created value. Another thing that I would certainly, as a computer scientist, would certainly want to kind of put on the table for discussion is an emerging prerequisite for AI that is deployed in the real world. And again, AI in general, be it traditional, generative, or agentic, which a prerequisite that goes beyond tests at accuracy. And the emerging term is trustworthy. So that's not ethical, that's not responsible, that's trustworthy, and that's different. It refers to the AI being robust as it encounters new data generation processes, as it moves from one country to another, as it kind of temporally goes from one year to another. Uncertainty quantification, which refers to how much does the model not know, which is the complete opposite of accuracy. Accuracy is how much is the model accurate. Uncertainty quantification is a kind of an exercise that we do to reveal how much that it doesn't know. Is it fair? Is the model fair across populations, different populations, different countries? Is it interpretable? And lastly, is it the kind of AI that has handled small data the correct way? Because small data is different from big data. It requires a totally different sort of treatment that only technical people can sort of implement. Now, of course, emerging risks are unintended biases that come from training data and the reinforcement signals themselves that kind of help these agents reflect and improve and better their performance, or model architecture, as simple as that. Bias can influence outputs in hiring and lending, in healthcare and content moderation. Now, neurons data privacy issues come up with, for example, consumer data protection, where you want to ensure user consent and anonymization and fair use. Training data governance becomes also a problem, where clarifying ownership is no longer easy, as we'll discuss shortly. Intellectual autonomy of human workers, which really refers to preventing over-reliance on AI and preserving human decision-making and creativity in the midst of this sort of craze. AI governance guidelines do exist, but I think a lot of people would agree with me that many well-developed policies target governments and regulators and not businesses. Boards often lack guidance tailored to corporate settings. There's also a prevailing role ambiguity, which is around the uncertainty whether AI oversight should be a strategic board-level priority or a compliance control function. Should we defer to existing committees, which might risk fragmented oversight? Now, I think some of us have mentioned alignment governance a short while back. And on that front, we distinguish between content alignment, which ensures that AI-generated content reflects organizational values. So for Gen AI creators, we want to avoid harmful or prohibited content. For businesses, we want to match AI output with brand identity. Decision alignment refers to when we want to ensure that AI decisions support our business goals. So for high-stakes applications, for example, ethical decisions in self-driving cars, or just everyday use where customer service refund decisions and ad targeting actually align with our business goals. Intellectual property governance goes around build or buy. Shall I build around open source models, which are mostly really just for cost efficiency, transparency, and IP control, but you risk quality and security, and of course would require a lot of talent to be on board, as opposed to vendor solutions, which you could just buy. They are costly, less transparent, and you would certainly risk vendor lock-in, where everything you've invested in is just locked in. There's no way to kind of unlock and bring locally. Buzzwords like responsible AI and ethical AI, I believe, are being used widely but poorly defined. These generate lengthy internal debates, which in my opinion lack a lot of operational clarity. How should responsible AI relate to corporate social responsibility? I think boards need clearer definitions, and they need to be aware of the fact that there will always be an evolving or shifting landscape, and we need to target it using trustworthy ML across fairness, the fairness metric, robustness, and uncertainty quantification. Beyond IP, training data governance is a big also discussion. Oversight must address legal and regulatory risks tied to training data, not just intellectual property. Using shared Gen AI models may require disclosure of training data to regulators or the public. And most large language models use copyrighted data without explicit permission. And the legal status of this specific data varies globally. Differing laws create unpredictable liability and operational risks. I think the other way around problem is also very, very interesting to notice. Employees' outputs may be reused to train AI replicas, raising ethical and governance questions on ownership and benefit sharing. Machine attribution governance. While Gen AI is widely used to create written, visual, and video content, attribution decisions affect trust in that context. Should audiences know what AI was versus human-made? This is becoming increasingly critical as AI handles more customer interactions. Sustainability, environmental and social, equally important. AI systems are consuming increasing amounts of electricity. And board members need to kind of strategically try to balance AI innovation versus sustainability goals. Social sustainability refers to the fact that the AI workforce is being displaced, is transitioning. People are expecting massive occupational shifts by 2030. And reskilling is an emerging term I hear a lot these days. It will evolve from a cost burden to a core brand identity like sustainability today. Something I, as a kind of technical person, would also bring up a lot, which is the distinction between model explainability and model transparency governance. Model explainability refers to how did the model learn. Transparency refers to what did it learn. And here are a few examples to explain the difference. Boards must decide how much AI decision logic must be explainable. The problem is the very powerful models based on deep learning are very powerful, are very accurate, but they are extremely opaque, extremely not transparent, not explainable. So you would get a very powerful decision, but you can't really justify why a loan, for example, a bank loan, was classified to be as a reject. Now, for transparency, organizations may face internal or external pressure to make systems more transparent. Uber's search pricing, for example, requires transparency for users and regulators. Insurance companies explaining AI-based premium pricing or personalized pricing. AI robustness governance refers to the fact that whether or not you know the technicalities of it, these models have errors in them. Now, traditional AI models are unpredictable, so we inherit that. Large language models add more onto this. We all know about hallucinations, which are really confident but incorrect outputs that just so happen. The more dangerous thing I think that people need to be kind of taking more attention about is jailbreaking. This is a process by which users intentionally bypass the model's safety and content restrictions in order to make it generate harmful output. And it's not really a hallucination. This is really kind of with intent. The challenges for the global south that I would want to maybe conclude around in the 2 slides are sort of things of my sort of personal experience and readings, and also kind of a result of living in a region which is grappling with similar problems. The first I would say is hype versus reality. This is really a very difficult time to be in. Organizations must shift their focus, which I see to be fixated on specific tools or trends. So anytime something new comes up, everybody is rushing to buy it. I think organizations must prioritize solving real-world business challenges, and guess what? It may not involve AI. Economic vulnerability is also something that our countries do ask about. Is AI a priority? Is it really worth investing in? Will it be increasing our GDP? Can it help build a better environment? Can it address our human rights issues, all forms of injustices and inequalities? As I said earlier, the demarcation between AI maturity versus AI value creation and AI value capture need to be very, very well defined. And the last thing I would say is we need to be aware of the kind of the duality between AI supremacy and dominance versus AI colonialism. This refers to the fact that AI standards or norms are largely shaped by a few powerful countries sidelining others. early AI policy adopters have gained a long-term control and influence, which has left countries in the global south lacking control over AI-related data and infrastructure, where AI principles are not necessarily aligned with their needs and constraints. A call to action that I would conclude with is for countries of the South to examine power imbalances and structural dependencies, to promote their own local agency that while incorporating a cultural pluralism and inclusive policy making. We need to be rethinking ownership, the deployment of AI models, and what happens when they are deployed in our sort of local setting, in our own cultures and languages. We need to be developing our own governance guidelines and guardrails using trustworthy machine learning as a very, very final but very firm advice. I think that must be it within the allocated time frame.
Thank you so much, Fatima. I think that was really quite a thought-provoking presentation. So is that the end of the presentation right there?
Yes.
Right. There we go. All right, great. Well, thank you so much. I think that there's a lot that you shared for our panel to think about and to discuss as we move to this next element of our opening ceremony. So if you would want to stop share for us now, just for a bit, great. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
And I know it's very late there for you in Beirut, but you'd be able to stay on, okay, to engage with the panel if they had a question.
I'm probably not able to stay if that's okay. Is that?
Absolutely, yes. If you're not able to stay on fully, that's okay. But if you can, we'd be happy. If we see you on, we'd be happy. But then in the event you need to, let me thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.
Yes.
Take care.
There was so much that we learned just now from Fatima. She said, the journey was a long one. It began way in the 1950s. And I really like how she shared sculpting the right mindset so that we may navigate the risks of AI. I learned a whole lot from her today, this whole notion of what is agentic AI. Many of these are new terms to us, but what has resonated most deeply with me is the question, who is accountable for harmful decisions? We are all eager to use the AI, but she has demonstrated how the AI being generative now is being used even as a quasi-employee. And therefore, when we enable these systems to make decisions on our behalf, because there are hallucinations, and I learned also from her this new term of jailbreaking in AI as well, where there's the harmful intention on the part of the user as well. Okay, and the notion of AI colonialism, where the global south lacks the control over AI related data and the architecture and all of that. So, she has appealed to us very, very strongly to rethink deployment of AI models to suit our own culture and local context. Fatima, thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody. And I'm terribly sorry to have to recluse and miss out on this. I wish you all the best.
Thank you. So now we'd like to invite our panel to take center stage and engage in the conversation as we invite our chairman, Mr. Nigel Romano, to serve as moderator. So Nigel, I invite you to take over this segment of the opening ceremony and briefly introduce the panelists.
Thank you very much, Kamla. And I want to thank Dr. Fatima Abu Salem again for a very thought-provoking presentation, sculpting a mindset, navigating risks, and there is a lot to digest. So to help us with that conversation, we have Dr. Kelly Ray Campbell, Global Head of Privacy, AI and Data Protection Regulations from the Digital Group. AI and IP consultant, World Intellectual Property Office, and board director of Book Fusion Limited, Jamaica. Welcome, Kelly Ray. We also have Ian John, CCGI director and CEO of CyberEye, Trinidad and Tobago, and Mr. Jude Houston, executive director, St. Martin Chamber of Industry and Commerce, from St. Martin. And I see that Ian has a very stark, it's almost like a human representation of a bot. But that's kind of uh, um, what hopefully we are getting to today. Thank you, Ian. You never cease to keep us on our toes. So let me start with you, since you are the cyber eye guy. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think Dr. Abu Salam's presentation, any one of those topics, we can spend several hours discussing, right? It's a lot of heavy information. The graphic behind me actually was generated using ChatGPT, giving a command of one sentence. So it's just fascinated that this individual, this young lady, doesn't exist. Right? She's a creation of my fingers typing a few words, and so the robot as well. I think we are entering into a new phase that is both very exciting. I think it's the most exciting time to be on planet Earth, but clearly it's also a time that can really, really create some nervousness and nervousness in a number of fronts. Just to give you an idea, there's some statistics, and we track statistics quite a bit, particularly in the cybersecurity space. Between 2022, May 1st, 2022, and June 20th, 2025, the online platform that reports fraud and crypto scams, internet scams, they have seen a 456% increase of generative AI fraudulent scams. That's 456% increase, right? And so what we're seeing is as these tools become prevalent, pervasive, available, the tools are available to enterprises, corporations, governments, but the same tools are available to individuals as well, right? And these tools are being used and can be used for great things. I mean, there's so many great examples that we have of AI, and the graphic behind me is one, but there are hundreds of examples of really bad things, as Professor Garrett was saying. He had a really bad experience, and I hope that worked out for you, Professor Garrett. From a cybersecurity standpoint, you did the right thing in doing nothing, saying nothing, and not replying, right? That's usually the advice we give to anyone who's been caught up in cyber fraud. So suffice it to say, to set the stage here today, I think there are some critical discussions that we certainly need to distill. And one is really looking at how individuals, organizations, how do they go about using AI? How do they go about implementing, onboarding AI in the organization? Particularly like Dr. Salem's point, where she talked about that AI maturity. And it's the same position we take in cybersecurity, cyber maturity, right? So what is that? That is a plan. What is the plan? What do you plan to use AI for? I mean, a lot of folks think ChatGPT is sexy, but what is the plan? What does the organization wants to get out of it? What is the benefit you want to get out of it? And once you understand that, then you develop a strategy. What is the strategy? Now think about all of the risks that are involved in using this technology. There are financial risks, there are operational risks, there are legal risks. So it requires a very holistic planning and an implementation of that plan and strategy, right? And so within that plan also deals with all of the governance and the IT and the security and the data implications. So I'll pause there now because I know there's quite a number of other topics that we can veer off to.
No, well, thank you for that. Thank you for putting that frame on it. Let me go to Kelly Ray and get her thoughts on the whole AI and her experience. Kelly? Yeah.
All right, good afternoon. Thanks for having me. So
Yep.
I think that generative AI, artificial intelligence, overall is not just a technological shift that we're seeing. It's sort of a paradigm shift. It's, I think, reshaping how we look at so many things. It's reshaping how knowledge is created, how our economies function, and how power is distributed. I think for us, especially as Caribbean nation states, this is going to bring about, or is bringing about, unprecedented levels of opportunities, but also conversely, new risks. And these are significant risks. On the one hand, you can leapfrog with over development gaps, but then on the other hand, it raises urgent questions from a data sovereignty perspective, from a regulatory perspective. Fatima spoke to labor disruption, and there's also an issue of cultural preservation. So I think it's unlike technological waves of the past, AI is here. It's moving fast. It's moving faster than policy frameworks can keep up with. The EU AI Act is already outdated. And there's so much development here. It's no longer, whether we'll be impacted. It's just how will we respond, and what can we do as nations, as private sector stakeholders to help shape the impact that helps to serve our region's priorities. So I'm looking forward to talking more about it, but that's just my general feel.
Thank you very much. Let's go to our next presenter. Go ahead.
President, good afternoon, everyone. If I must,
Jude.
first off, I must say I'm very much happy to be part and parcel of this distinguished panel, and congratulate the CCGI on this opening of the Governance Week. When we look at AI, and if I can bring it into the context of the Caribbean region per se, and knowing how what we are faced with our vulnerabilities, especially if we look at the islands in the northern part of the Caribbean region, where we're so susceptible to external shocks and dependence, import dependence, and so forth. And now we're faced with this AI revolution, and it is here to stay, and it is something that we have to contend with. We cannot run away from it. My on it is that it is something that we have to deal with, and we will have to jointly, whether it be on a regional level, together, come up with a mechanism as to how we can properly manage it, whether it be through a consolidated framework or legislation or so forth. Because again, as I said, it is something that we have to deal with, and as Dr. Fatima firmly put it, if not properly used, we can run so many risks. And so my whole take on it is that we will definitely have to formulate and get that proper understanding and as to the direction as to how and what we want to do with AI. I think Ian, you alluded to that likewise. It is something that we have to deal with, and we just have to formulate the right strategies and ensure that we develop the right mechanism as to how we're going to proceed in that with such.
Yeah, the question for me is, AI presents very, very serious, very, very significant benefits to organizations in improving productivity. The guys who are doing coding, their jobs are in serious trouble because the AI can code better than most, at least at the introductory level. Generating the whole customer service thing, we all know. You call a bank, you're dealing with AI initially. You call your credit card company, the AI answers and then kind of directs you. Customer service for definitely. marketing plans, selling initiatives, and these are just some of a few of the things that are gaining traction. And as I said, I read this AI 2027 document, and it's like 60 pages long. I mean, I can share the link. But the point is that if we believe AI is a threat today, these guys are predicting that in a year, 2 years, it's going to be in a whole different ball game. So the question is, how do we respond as organizations? One, two, how do we respond as governments with an obligation to our citizens, a lot of whose jobs are going to be at risk? And is there the whole universal basic income, where you guarantee a certain level of income for everybody, regardless of where they work or who they are, because of the impact on jobs as a result of AI? So I will be interested in hearing what you think about that. Focus on that impact on jobs and job creation or job destruction. Who wants to go first?
If I may,
Yeah, go right ahead.
I am thinking that, of course, our governments do have a responsibility to ensure the well-being of all. And I am firmly of the opinion that there must be how must I say it, an element of capacity building.
Mm-hmm.
There must be an element of capacity building whereby we have to gravitate to the changing times. We will have to develop strategies and programs and initiatives so that we can bring our people up to the times that we are living in. So even if it means that we often you will hear in various jurisdictions that we need to revamp our educational curriculum. Is it that the road we have to take? Probably in some instances, but in overall, in essence, my take on it is that we will have to build that level of capacity among our people so that they can confront, they can engage, they can be part and parcel of what is ahead. If we don't do that, then we're going to be left behind. And again, I want to reiterate that I firmly believe that should be done more on a regional approach. If we look at it from the context of the Caribbean region, because as one person rightfully said a short while ago, not no one country can deal with it on its own when the time comes. So I firmly believe that we will have to come together and develop the necessary programs and policies and legislations and so forth, and capacity building initiatives so that our people can benefit and make the proper use of the AI and in the right context.
Kelly?
Yeah, so I believe that from time immemorial, our economies have changed. We're now moving from an industrial economy to a knowledge economy, a data-driven economy. And with that comes a shift in the types of jobs that are available. I don't think, while there will be jobs that, become a little bit more obsolete, there are going to be a lot more opportunities. And as Jude said, it's for the government to see this as an opportunity to fund and support AI research and AI infrastructure to help with that transition and help with that development, so that while yes, there are jobs being lost, there are more being developed. And that comes with upskilling workers, that comes with upskilling population, that comes with ensuring that there's a certain level of investment that is funneled into this industry. I saw that the Trinidad and Tobago just established its Ministry of AI, Public Administration and Artificial Intelligence. And I think moves like that will help to empower population. If there's an active move on the part of the public sector, so too will there be a move in the private sector. I think the private sector, there's a similar responsibility. Seeing this, if you're not moving ahead, you're lagging behind. If you're not keeping up, if you're not empowering your staff, if you're not building new skills, then in 5 to 10 years, you're no longer a part of the economy. And so if it is that you want to continue to compete in the age of AI, there has to be a lot of data governance that goes into it. So rules that are dealing with data governance will become, I think, even more critical. Rules that are critical to knowledge economy and empowering persons to understand and identify what is needed. Rules in response to, with regards to building responsible AI systems, building responsible infrastructure, and just understanding that will become a lot more critical.
Agreed. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I agree with both speakers. Just to add, I would say that I don't have a whole lot of confidence in terms of leadership from the government standpoint, for the simple fact that this technology doesn't move at the speed of legislation, right? And it's not waiting on government. It's not waiting on the government to pass laws and proclaim laws. It's gone. The genie is out, right? This is disrupting livelihoods. It's disrupting societies. It's disrupting the way we socialize. I mean, when you look at some countries like Japan and Asian countries, how they socialize have changed, right? With AI and the persons who don't leave their rooms. There's about a couple million people in Japan who don't leave their rooms. They are isolated. They get married to anime and those characters that are online, and they live their life out online, right? So this genie is gone. Where my concern is, quite frankly, is more from a not knowing what is happening. In every single country in the Caribbean, I could tell you that governments are clueless with regards to what is taking place in the digital space. So I think what is required, firstly, is for government to be able to surveil those digital platforms that citizens are spending an enormous amount of times on. They're living, they're socializing, they're committing crimes. There's a whole different world. That digital world is an entirely different world that they're spending a lot of times. The school kids are also doing the same. So how do we surveil that to really understand? And research is required to understand how is that impacting lives? How are livelihoods changing? This new economic model, as I said previously, the world GDP is $500 quadrillion. Just wrap your mind around that. For the first time in history in 2025, we have multiple organizations that are worth more than $3 trillion. And what has fueled that increase in revenue, in income, in wealth, has been cloud, has been AI, has been all the digital platforms, to which we in the Caribbean, we are not even focused on. We're still talking about infrastructure and drains and roads, right? And this world is way ahead. We are still operating in Industry 3.0. Let's get that on the table. We have not moved from Industry 3.0. So to start talking about Industry 5.0, we don't even have respect for data. I mean, raise your hand if you all understand any organization or government in the Caribbean who have an entire framework around data protection, IP, right? And who also have charged anyone and prosecuted someone for misuse of data. Just name one case for me in the Caribbean. None, absolutely none. So I am of the point of view that this genie is gone and forever we are going to be playing catch up. Now, fundamentally, what is required is private organizations and individuals like ourselves and the CCGI. We need to equip our citizenry with knowledge and education to understand how to be relevant, how to play, how to earn. right? How to live and generate your share of wealth in these new digital environment. That is fundamentally it. How are we going to survive? How are we going to generate wealth? I'll give you an example. Microsoft CEO came out just about 3 months ago, and he said there's such a disruption coming. He said businesses don't understand what is coming. Governments don't understand what is coming. And Dr. Abu Salam talked about agentic AI, and I've been playing and working with agentic AI, right? And to just give you an example, if you book a hotel, you go onto the application, you said, okay, I want to book a hotel. Here's my credit card, and you book the hotel. Well, there's now a new agent that you just say, here's my credit card, and you buy anything that I ask you to purchase. I need to book a flight from here to London, take care of it. That agent is doing all of that. That's an agent. That's not an individual. So think about every task that is being done by individuals within your organization. Think about an agent being able to now conduct those tasks. So I tell people, when we're looking at AI, you look at AI in 3 buckets, and this is how the Caribbean needs to look at it. We need to look at the hype and the reality. Here's the reality. There are 3 things that are going to happen. There are jobs that AI, and I say jobs because AI is disrupting jobs, tasks, functions, not people, right? So within the organization, you need to look at the task, the functions, all of the things that can be digitized, that can be automated. And if it can be automated, automate it. But then there are areas where AI is going to augment. In other words, it's going to enhance the job that I am doing. So a lot of manual things that I used to do, I no longer am going to be required because AI can take over those, and I can focus on servicing more. I can focus on a number of other new tasks. And you said it, Kelly, which is, the new tasks that we need to upskill. So my role as a GP, a general practitioner, and this is a real example. I had a scan a couple of months ago. I got the results of the scan, and I basically asked ChatGPT to give me the full result and interpret the result. It did provide me full interpretation. And by the way, ChatGPT passed the medical examination board in a couple of minutes. So I was in good hands. I got the report and I took it to my doctor. My doctor said, this is perfect. As a matter of fact, it also pointed out some areas that I would not consider. So the point is, there are going to be jobs that can be enhanced and certain tasks that are going to be enhanced. And we should be able to identify those and say, okay, this is where we think we can upgrade, uptool, upskill certain workers so that they're not disrupted or they're not lost in the system. And then the 3rd bucket, which is the bucket we should all be concerned about. And by the way, the young people are not waiting for us. They've gone ahead. They're earning online. They're influencers. They're making a lot of money. They're making money in Bitcoin and crypto, etc., because they got it. They get it. They understand it. All of the new opportunities that are going to be created by AI, and there are going to be millions of jobs, millions of ways of earning income that we see. $500 quadrillion that is being created is actually new jobs that are being created. How do we prepare our education system, our young people, our current workers to be able to tap into those new areas that is going to be generated by AI? CEO of Google said, Mr. Pichai said, he said this about AI. He says AI is so fundamental. The impact of AI on society and the world will be more profound than fire. Can you believe that? And electricity. And I can't fathom that. My mind cannot wrap itself around what would be more impactful than electricity. I mean, think about the world without electricity. But think about the world without a good burger, because there's no fire. And these are scientists who are saying that. So I think really and truly, the genie is out, and we have to find a way to make this work, make it relevant for us in the Caribbean.
Yep. Jude, you have your hand up.
Yes, in support to what Ian mentioned, indeed, I don't think it will worth anything waiting on our regional governments, quite honestly. And I am thinking in the context of on a corporate level, on the private sector, as to what sort of intervention can we do in the interim then? Because I firmly believe that as corporations, we do have a responsibility likewise. And even if you look at it in terms of from a board and executive branch of any corporation, they already have their objective as to what they want to achieve. And how can we then decide, okay, then how can we incorporate the level of, how can we influence a sort of AI, the level of AI intervention that we want within our corporations? So that means we will have to tap up with the speed likewise. And I firmly believe that we can also then make certain demands. And that is how you will get our people who are interested, who do not want to be displaced. Then they will, then that more or less force them to, how must I say, to get the relevant capacity so as to be within the organization. So in essence, I firmly believe that as a private sector, we indeed do have a role and responsibility in influencing that expectations.
Go ahead, Kelly.
Yeah, so I agree with you totally. I think the private sector definitely has a huge role to play in this, especially because AI is moving too quick for, I think, the government or any of that bureaucratic process to even keep up. But what it means is that we have to move from being passive viewers to strategic owners of how AI is shaped within the region. So a lot of that capacity building has to be driven, I think, and I think basically is what both Judah and Ian are saying, has to be driven from the private sector. And that means that whether it is that we take a principled approach to protecting our data, I do think, Ian, there might be one or two companies that have some data governance frameworks. I won't call them. But whether that means like building your own data governance framework, crafting the policies and reflecting the values of responsible AI, of trustworthy AI, and building out that sector in the private sector, that's something that we as the private sector have to take on. And it means that we have to invest ourselves in the digital infrastructure to support the development of regional AI talent, and also kind of asserting, even from the private sector perspective, our own voice in the global governance conversations. I think that's the only way we get to move at the pace that the rest of the world is moving at.
And so I have a different question, because I see even our private sector, our public sector, our governments as being too small to really impact. Is there a role for a United Nations of AI, some sort of global organization? And there is going to be bureaucracy, but at least we would have players from different parts with different agenda coming together. Is there to set up the governance, to set up the standards, something like a standards board, if you will, for governance?
So you have the
somebody said the OECD.
Yeah, okay.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, so you have the OECD
Yeah.
that has already gone forward and established AI principles. And that's important because the OECD was also the first out of the gate to establish privacy and data protection principles, which form the basis of GDPR. I think also there have been meetings, I'm aware of meetings at the UN, working groups that are focused on AI and AI governance. And if it is that I believe that if it is that we want to take kind of a more active role, CARICOM can get together and also drive some of those conversations and be a part
through
of
the OECD.
forward. Be a part of that global conversation.
Edward has shared a link to some of the principles, the AI principles. Thank you very much, Edward. I also shared that AI 2027.com link. And I encourage you, because these guys, one of them used to work with OpenAI and was fired and almost lost his shares, but fought and retained his shares. But they do forecasting of where they see AI going and how it's going to develop. But it's very, very interesting reading, and I would encourage everybody to read it. But I have a different question for you guys, and I discussed it with Kamala. So we're talking about training AI and ensuring that AI is aligned with our purpose, with our values, etc. And the question I had is, and in the Bloomberg article, they speak of managers of AI. So the people who are going to be most productive are the people who are going to learn how to manage AI and use AI effectively. And the problem I have is that most of our leaders, most of our managers do a very poor job of ensuring that our human intelligence is aligned with our purpose. Most people in organizations don't know why they are there. They don't know their purpose. They don't know what a good job looks like. And nobody is there guiding them and leading them and managing them to achieve the kinds of productivity they can achieve without AI. I want to hear your response to that. Kelly, you look like you want to go first.
So it's interesting that you brought that up, because agentic AI, as Professor Fatima would have kind of walked us through, there are currently three types. You can categorize it right now into three types of agentic AI. You have what you call human in the loop, human on the loop, and human out of the loop. Human in the loop is basically the agent does something and it waits on an actual person for confirmation.
To tell it.
Yeah, and then human on the loop, the agents can go and do what it's doing, but it's being monitored. And then human out of the loop, there's no human involved. With regards to human involvement and AI managers, I would say that any deployment of AI, at least in its current state, any responsible deployment requires human in or on the loop. You run into, I think, regulatory risks, especially when you have, privacy or data protection issues at play, when it's human out of the loop. Persons not knowing what they're doing in the jobs, I can't really speak to that. I think that sounds like there is some need for upskilling there. But I think there is an opportunity to not look at AI as maybe a competitor, but as a tool that can be leveraged, and that we can kind of use to improve whatever it is that we're doing going forward.
I agree with you 100%. And please don't hesitate to raise your questions or open your mic and ask a question as we discuss these very important topics. Ian, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, I was just going to add to what Kelly said, in that when we advise and implement AI within corporate environments at this point in time, particularly in the Caribbean, we advise clients and we would implement what is called your on-prem AI. So you are still using the same tools, still using all of the large learning models. And what we do is we ensure that the data that is being shared is obviously shared within the security and the policy parameters. So all of those policies, governance, controls are built into that system. And then secondly, that system is in your environment, so the data doesn't leave your environment. So you have the ability to control the data. That's the only recommendation we make to private sector companies, especially those who fall under the ambit of data protection, particularly GDPR, particularly some of the data protection acts across the region. We don't recommend that you implement cloud-based AI systems for the simple reason of having that control, right? And it works, and it works well. And it can be audited, and it can be shut down. And you can export the data off of the system. So you own the system. The challenge is when we start having these AI tools that are sitting out there and the transparency is not there, and you don't know who else has access to it, and there's no offboarding. If you decide to not use the system anymore, where does your data lie? Are you allowed to offboard your data? Those are real fundamental issues, and I'm just using the layman terms without getting into the
Yeah.
at this point in time.
Edward had some question. How is the enterprise risk management program handling this emerging risk? And again, I believe it goes back to understanding how the AI, whichever AI you're using, how it has been trained, and what, as Professor Abu Salem said, what has it been trained on or with, and being very careful to understand and not just accept what the AI generates. One has to begin to learn. But do any of you have experience with this? How are enterprise risk management programs handling the AI risk? I mean, I don't know if you have firsthand, Ian or Kelly.
So from what I can see is that a lot of enterprise risk management programs, whether regionally and internationally, what they've been doing is kind of subsuming it under their data privacy, data governance framework. If you're in an organization that has any kind of privacy and data governance framework, it's very easy to kind of add that AI element, that AI due diligence on top of that. And a lot of the bigger risks with AI comes with the handling of data. It comes with transparency, bias, ensuring, how it is being used is equitable and ethical. And so what I've found is that it's sometimes centered almost in the legal and compliance department with a shared responsibility. And it depends on the organization, because if you're an organization that is developing and deploying AI internally, then it is from data collection to data analysis all the way to deployment of the AI system. But if you're in an organization that might be just leveraging an AI tool that is already available, then it is more so on the procurement, legal engagement, and where there is an assessment of that AI system. And so it's almost being merged, I find, with risks that are already present in the enterprise risk management program.
Let me just say though, let me just answer it, that it's easier said than done. So, I mean, just looking at the enterprise risk framework, it's a really, really beautiful framework. But typically, does it actually work, right? Because for you to know that it works, you have to get down to the operational level, and typically it doesn't get down to that level. So firstly, when we talk about data and using it and enshrining it with the data, what we found is that customers don't know where their data are being held, and they don't know who's holding what, and they don't know who's sharing what, right? So for instance, someone sends an application into an organization to me in my email, but that application I forward to another manager, but the files are still in my outbox. They're still sitting in my email, right? And so that's the issue we have with data, really understanding data and really having the governance around data. And that's the point I was making earlier on, Kelly, that I mean, I have an organization that operates in the UK, and we have to be GDPR compliant. And every shred of data, we must be able to account for every shred of data, because that law requires you to be able to account for where the data is, who has the data, when was it accessed. To the point, if a user asks me to tell them everything about their data, I must be able to produce a report to that end user. And that's the essence of GDPR. I must be able to say to that end user, this is what your data has been used for. This is all the times it has been accessed in the last month for these reasons. And if I cannot produce that, then I'm not in compliance with GDPR. We don't have that type of robust data management policy systems in the Caribbean. And if anyone could tell me any organization, I would love to do a case study with that organization, because I think that case study needs to be shared with other entities to be able to be replicated across the Caribbean. How do we see it, and how do we know when there are breaches in the cybersecurity space and we are there, we're the first responders. So we know some of the largest organizations in the Caribbean has been breached, ransomed. We know, right? So this is factual. The other point, Nigel, not to come off, I think this is very important for us to understand when we talk about AI. And I mean, Dr. Salem, Abu Salim did not bring this point up, right? And this is fundamentally why you may find that I'm a bit pessimistic. AI is an arms race. So when you think about the race, it's an arms race. Whoever gets to dominate AI, whoever gets to arrest control of AI, now is in control of the wealth of the future of the planet. So when we talk about things like sustainability, so for instance, many of the larger players in the space, such as Microsoft and Google, what are they doing right now? They are purchasing nuclear plants, nuclear power plants to power
run the AI.
the centers and the AI, right?
Yep.
Because if you don't have the power, then what happens? You're not able to run the sophisticated, very complex modeling and tools required to do some of the things that the futurists are saying will happen in the next 20 years. So there are two people at war. There's a place that I'm in right now, a country that I'm in right now, and there's another place in the Far East, right? And these are the two that are going at it to say, okay, we want to be the dominant player. And there's a whole an entire chip embargo that is not being allowed for one country to have access to. That's fundamentally what is behind. So when people are saying, let's create a lobby group and let's lobby, both sides know that if they stop, the other side is going to continue to advance the development, and therefore they are not going to be advanced. So so let's get off that train. Let's decide. So if you notice, like two people behind me, they're now smiling, right? They're finding a way to work together, right? They're coming up with some terms and conditions in terms of how they will work together so that they can both benefit. Man and the machine, as we say, right?
Yep.
That's
No, and exactly what you said there is what these guys did in AI 2027. It's fascinating, and they go month by month, and they go from GPT-4 to 5 to 6 to 7 to 8. I mean, it's madness. Jude.
My take on it.
And by the way, for those, sorry, Jude, let me just
No
make this
problem.
announcement. We have the SurveyMonkey link. So those online and attending, please take some time to fill it out. But Jude, go ahead.
Yeah, my take on it is that I firmly believe that there is little impact, little effect from that of the enterprise risk framework that can really and truly, how must I say, protect the information that is shared from any organization. Because yes, you may have, for example, you may have a compliance department and compliance policies and regulations within the organization. But once you engage from a foreign AI agency or service provider, there goes your data. You have no control over that thereafter. So my take on it is that it is something that it is part of the risk that we run when we do engage with those entities or AI agencies or providers. Once the data gets out, you have no control over it thereafter.
It depends on the leverage you bring to the relationship, right? I think Ian kind of alluded to having your data being stored locally it gives you kind of that sovereignty, that control over your data. And then if it is you're a smaller company, yeah, chances are no. If you're a larger organization, there might be some negotiation that you have to one, request the ability to audit what's happening with your data. Yes, you don't know for sure. You can't see. You're contracting with these people for certain things to happen. But depending on how the model is built, and just say it's what you call an up-trained model, where on the basis of it, they're using an already established a model like ChatGPT, but they've put on top of it a reasoning algorithm, and that sits with like this third-party company. You might have a little bit more control into how that data is used. But I think it's definitely a risk the moment you're engaging with a third party. Who will have access to your data, the risk exists. And it's, again, I think Edward was saying it in the chat, it's to now inform all these stakeholders. You almost have to ensure that your stakeholders are asking the right questions and they are now aware of AI systems, of the different type of models that might exist, the different architecture. It's a lot of investment in this data stewardship that will have to happen, and companies will have to invest in. Ian seems to want to say something.
Ian is getting excited. Oh my God.
Yes.
He can't help himself.
I can't help myself because I've been having this conversation with leaders in the Caribbean for the last 15 years, right? And let me just bring this home. Let me bring it home and land it.
Okay.
What is the basic fundamental of AI? What does AI need to exist, to be relevant?
Data.
Okay, data. What is the Caribbean known for data? Everybody's
So what I'll say is that we do have a lot of data.
Everybody's producing data. Everybody has a lot of data. But let's land it, because the plane in land here is about 50 feet above the ground. What is the subject that Dr. Abu Salam said she was fortunate that she was a what? She did what?
It was a what? Sorry.
Mathematics.
Okay.
Yeah, mathematics.
She did her grounding in mathematics. Let us make no mistake. AI is all about mathematics. What is the subject that we have the highest failure rate in the Caribbean?
The one I just mentioned.
Thank you. I rest my case. You want to deal and you want to have a future in this space? Let the educators and the legislators and all the government officials give that attention. If you're not strong in mathematics, you're not playing in space. You will be a consumer maybe at a level where you're using graphical interface and you're using voice commands and you're using some level of prompting, but you are not a player in this space. So every time I hear governments talk about this, and I see we have a government in Trinidad now with the Ministry of Public Administration and AI, well, they need to get the Ministry of Education to start really teaching our students how to do mathematics and pass it, not at 50%. They need to be getting 100%. Because look at Asia. Look at Asia's pass mark with mathematics. And that's why China is going guns. That is why China is a real threat to the US for dominance in this space. It comes down to the fundamentals. All the nice talk about legislation and protection and enterprise and all of that. Fundamentally, it's mathematics. Fundamentally, it's data. Fundamentally. There's another point that I want to put on the table. I've been tracking this for the last 20 years. I've spoken about it publicly a number of times. How many patents exist within the Caribbean? Don't even bother. Go to
That's a function of your universities and your education
That's a function
system.
of your whole creativity and your wealth.
Yeah.
And fundamentally, there are countries like the United States of America and there are countries like China who are generating billions of dollars, and the UK billions of dollars every year just from royalties from patents. They don't need to do anything. They just need to just collect money off of royalty of patents. How do we make money in the Caribbean? Tourism. That's a finite resource. So talking about AI, we come back to the fundamentals. It comes back to people. It comes back to how we govern, how we lead. I am sorry, but that's basically what it is. I'm at a conference here, and one of the topics is going to be AI, and some of the best minds. Actually, the CEO of NVIDIA is carded to be here as well.
NVIDIA, right? Yeah.
And it's mathematics.
Yeah.
It's all about mathematics.
It's all about mathematics. Yeah.
So let's not kid ourselves. That's it. We'll be users. We'll be consumers. But we'll be very low, what we call soft touch or low touch consumers.
So I definitely agree with you. We are going to be consumers. There's definitely a lot of investment that needs to go into education, the basics of it. I do think, though, that just like the rest of the world, we have the data. That's the oil. And so if we can find a way to even monetize that, and participate in the industry, I think while we might not be the developers, we might not be the mathematicians, the patents might not necessarily come from here. I think we can have a seat at the table. It might not be in the way that we want to, because of the lack of resource. But I definitely think there is an opportunity for us, because we also, the data that we bring, Fatima also touched on colonialism. If we do not show up for that, it means that all the data that is all the decisions that are being made, all the data that is gathered, all the algorithms that are built, we won't have a say. It won't necessarily be reflective of us, and the digital divide will continue to get broader. And so while I definitely agree we don't have necessarily as strong a foundation as we need, I think we should be trying to ensure that we are a part of the conversation, that we're showing up, and that our information is a part of this ecosystem.
So let me just close by sharing some AI, because Sharon asked a question and she wanted to know, what was it? Can you indicate at what rate Caribbean governments are adopting or prepared to adopt AI? Is private sector adoption outpacing government adoption? So of course I went and I asked AI. The Caribbean AI market is projected to reach $265.8 million US in 2025, with an expected annual growth rate of 26.26%, resulting in a market volume of 1.08 billion US dollars by 2031. This growth is driven primarily by private sector adoption across multiple industries. Analysis indicates that 30 to 40% of jobs in Latin America and the Caribbean are exposed to generative AI, with potential productivity boosts of 8 to 12% for regional jobs. However, up to 17 million jobs may not leverage AI benefits due to digital infrastructure limitations. And it concludes, now it had a lot before that, and I'm just summarizing. The Caribbean private sector AI adoption is clearly outpacing government implementation, driven by competitive pressures, operational efficiency needs, and the ability to move quickly without bureaucratic constraints. While governments are making progress through policy development and regional collaboration initiatives, the private sector is actively deploying AI solutions across tourism, finance, healthcare, and other key industries. And Ian gave an example of healthcare there. So we have a critical window of opportunity to accelerate AI adoption before falling behind global competitors. Very interesting. That's AI at work. Thank you all very much. I enjoyed this conversation. Kamla, what do you have? I'll hand it over to you to wrap us up. But thank you all, Kelly Ray, Jude, and Ian. Very, very informative. And look, Ian has gone with a whole family now. God, I can't stop him.